Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Hope you've had a brilliant week. So this week I'm going to talk a little bit about mistakes that I see sales teams make. And this is a really useful episode for you if you work within, have people in your team that work for you, or if you may be one of a team member that's in an organisation, and maybe some of the things that you can share with colleagues when you speak to them next. So these are sort of common mistakes I see sales teams making that I think are things that they need to avoid and stop putting in place in order to get the results that they want. Because, and by the way, I should say that I think the nature of team is the starting point of this first point, really, which is that teams are teams that combine together to achieve things. And one of the things that's often said about salespeople and sales organisations is that they're very individually focused. So a lot of time people say, oh, well, it's an individual, game, and you can't get, someone to help someone else because that's not their account, or they won't get paid for it, or whatever else. But one of the things that I agree, of course, yes, ultimately you as a salesperson is responsible, or your team are responsible for what they do with an individual client. But one of the things that sales teams can do really effectively, point number one, is share information on what's working and what's not working. So I did some training with an organisation a couple of months back, and one of the things that was really, really powerful in the group was that we brought these group people together where we were doing the sales training, and we talked to them about what was working, what wasn't working with the organisations and the people they were chatting to. And one of the things that was really helpful was that they were able to share examples of what had gone well and what had not gone well, and how they'd responded to things in a team environment. And I think that sort of sharing of knowledge and passing of knowledge in between teams is a really effective way to bring people together, and also to avoid making the same mistakes. And if you can't do it face to face, because of course you've got getting people face to face takes time, people from different regions or areas, but you can do that virtually. So one of the things that we've implemented with another organisation that we have is we have a meeting every Monday for 45 minutes where the sales team share, and we use something called a Lion model. So the Lion model that we use is a really simple model for having a sales review, which stands for last week, issues, opportunities, and next week. And we ask them to share what's going on, what are the issues they're facing, what are the challenges they're facing. So for example, we were on a call last week where one of the team was sharing that they're seeing a trend happen at the moment with people asking for a certain set of information before they go to commit something. We had another person sharing that they saw a competitive scenario that we weren't aware of. So getting your team to share information on a simple weekly call, I think, is really powerful. And then they add to that, I would also then create, whether it's a Slack channel, a WhatsApp group, a Teams channel that you've got, for where people to share information in the same way, and encourage people to share data. They are individuals, but they also work within a team environment, and you need to be able to make full use of that. So getting people to share knowledge is key. Just to add to the point number two, links to point number two, is accept that there are different people in the company that can help you. So one of the mistakes I often see sales teams making, and I see this quite a lot actually with often sales and marketing are the worst. They sort of come together where marketing and sales have this battle marketing's leads aren't quality doing what we want it to, and there's this fight between people. But yet you need both teams to work together effectively. In the organisations that I work with in the financial space, they sometimes have people in compliance or in other departments, and they want to fight those people. And I'm like, you're not going to succeed as a sales team if you're fighting internally, if you've got issues, where you're trying to, and of course, different people, I get the fact there are different characteristics and people and roles and whatever else, but fighting internally and trying to have pop at someone else in your team and try and blame them for something or not engage them is not going to work. Of course, you've got to see things from each other's perspectives, but try and be in a position where you can work together as a team to identify what's required. And if someone is from a different perspective than you, let's say they're in a compliance angle, talk to them about the challenges you're facing. Try and rationalise them, have a coffee with them, have a lunch with them and say, look, these are the challenges we're facing, and it's not just in this customer, it's common across all. How can you help us overcome this? Because most organisations know that salespeople are the tip of the spear, at the end of the day, or the striker in the football team. If they rely on those salespeople to do the business, to bring numbers in. Without that, the company doesn't exist. But yet, if we don't work together, then it causes some challenges and some issues. And I think we just need to be able to avoid that. So just be careful about it. And if you're a sales manager or leader, just be careful at the language you're hearing about people. Oh, that department's not doing this. Hey, we're all one team. Let's open up a conversation with them. Let's open up that dialogue and see if we can find out what's going wrong to fix it. So point number 3, which I think is some mistakes I see sales teams making, is not applying knowledge, actually. So one of the things that I think is difficult for a lot of salespeople, and it's difficult for us all, is we get into routines as human beings. But we might learn something new. And I'm classic case of this where I might learn something new around a sales message or a copy or learning a heuristic, for example, and I then don't apply it in what I'm doing day to day. So it's like I sometimes say to myself, James, what's the point in learning that if you're not going to go and apply it? And taking the application of something takes time, it takes work, it takes you to change a neural pathway in your brain to go from, no, I'm not going to do what I've always done, I'm going to do things quite in a slightly different way. And there's a great little tip actually that I was told. If you want to get your brain into a pathway, into seeing different things in different pathway, try and do little things every day that can be different to the norm. So, for example, the tip that I learned was to brush your teeth with the opposite hand. Because what it does, your brain, most people, you'll be listening to this maybe this evening, and I bet you pick up your toothbrush with your common hand, whether it's left or right-handed, and you'll brush your teeth with that hand. And it's just a common pathway that our brain has built up. It's a habit that we've built up. Now, sometimes in order to change those habits, we need to operate differently. So that's one simple one that you can do. Or, for example, put your socks on. Most people, I know it sounds stupid, but you'll put your socks on in the same order. And I know I do. I put my right sock on first, then I put my left sock on. So actually turn it around the other way. So little things you can do to change your behaviours will enable you then to be able to try and start applying different, new learnings that you bring on board. And there's one thing I try and read, on my list of things that I try and do, I try and read 20 pages of a book every day. And I then, at the end of each book, I try and think, right, what are the 3 things I want to implement from this? What are the 3 things I want to put in place? And I then start to work at how I can change that. And I look back at the books that I've read and think, right, okay, how can I make sure that what I'm doing here, I'm applying in my day-to-day access. So don't take on knowledge. And knowledge is great, but if you don't apply it, it's a waste of time. So how can you start to apply the knowledge to get the results that you want? And the reality is, as Peter Drucker once said, if you do, if you carry on doing the same things, you'll get the same results. And if you're not getting the results you want, or if you want to grow or get better, you've got to adjust and make those changes. And even though it's difficult at first, change is difficult at first. Difficult, or what someone said, change is hard at first, difficult in the middle, but glorious at the end. So the reality is, once we train our brains to do things differently, it can work well. So another thing that I think a lot of salespeople don't do is linked into that element around knowledge is have prompts and reminders. So what do I mean by a prompt and a reminder? I mean, let's say you've got a new service that you've offered and you're not quite sure of the service delivery or how it comes together, or something you might offer that's different in your organisation. I put in a little prompt. I went to an organisation, an office the other day, and around this salesperson's desk there was about 10 different post-its. And I was like, good on you, because they had a post-it that was in 2 different colours around what to say if this happens, and they had a prompt around if the client asks about this, say this. And they had different things to remind them when they were on a sales call of what to say. And they also had some printed stuff written out so they could know what to do at certain points. So unless we're Dominic O'Brien, who was the world memory champion, by the way, he remembered, I think it was 54 decks of cards altogether in one. So you imagine 52 times 54, a number, he remembered all those cards together. I think that's incredible memory. So unless you're Dominic O'Brien, I digress. Unless you're Dominic O'Brien, we're not going to remember things. We need prompts, visual prompts to remind us, oh yeah, I remember that was our new service. We've got to talk about this, or it competes differently with this organisation, or it's got this unique selling point, or whatever, to be able to include that in our activity. So make sure you've got prompts available to you to use. Point number 5, I don't think salespeople in some of the sales teams I'm talking about value their time enough. I see people being a bit glib about time and being able to do certain things at certain times, and well, if I do one meeting today and I don't do another meeting till tomorrow, then it's okay. And I was reading a book the other day, and there was a stat that came out I thought was really interesting, and it said that there are only 61 selling days in a quarter. And when you think about that, you think, a quarter is quite a long period of time. It's 90 days. But this book was saying, actually, by the same take holiday into account and weekends and whatever else, there's actually only 61 days. So if you think about that, there's only 240 days in the year to be able to do for selling. And of course, there's more if you want to work extra hard. But 240 days to hit a target, you've already lost a third of that, before you start. So just maximise your time. Really think carefully about meetings that you're going to, and are they going to add value to you? Set aside time for training and development every day, but make sure you then focus time on other things like your prospecting or following up with clients or ensuring that you're doing the work you need to do to handle to practice, for example, a sales objection or an issue. So make sure you value your time effectively. And the best way to value our time is to use as much of it as you can in the day. And I know a lot of salespeople sometimes, sadly, that will not utilise their time daily. They don't look after themselves. I'm always trying to look after myself so I can get up earlier and maximise the hours in the day I have, because if I've got more energy and feel fitter, then I'm going to be able to be stronger to do things. So just utilise your time effectively. And a great way to do this is also to plan out your day the next day, the night before. So when maybe if you're leaving the office or before you get to your next day or next week, plan out what you want to happen. Put time in the diary. If you want to do some prospecting, if you want to do some follow-ups, if you want to do a meeting, plan out what your day looks like. I know today when I'm recording, I had a really busy schedule. I've got tasks on my list that I'm committed to doing. I had to get up earlier, so I was up at 5 o'clock this morning to get some stuff done. I went to the gym. I was able to do things before I got to my location to film because I wanted to make these things happen. Now, of course, I might need to go to bed a bit earlier. I might need to sacrifice a little bit something at the end of the day and not go out with friends or whatever else. But the point is, sometimes when you're having to get results, you've got to make those commitments. So just value your time effectively. So my final three elements to finish this podcast off are around that I think and they're quite two of them are quite linked actually. Is an over expectation on leads to come through or not having enough leads in the pipeline. I've fall foul of this, and invariably when I'm talking to sales teams around where they want to be and their targets and how they're going to hit their number, there's an over-expectation of deals that are going to come in. There's this phrase I hear again from reading this book, which I loved, called happy ears. Salespeople have happy ears. They see and hear the things they want to hear, which is great, for them, but actually isn't a true reflection of what was going on at the buyer. And that means that when they come to the element of getting a deal done or getting where they want to get to, they struggle to win the business. And because they haven't got enough leads in their pipeline, they then miss the numbers they want to hit. So I think you can never have enough leads in your pipeline. If you've got 50 leads in your pipeline that all want to buy your service right now, it's a brilliant problem to have. Even if you're running your own business, you think, I can't service them all. Well, you can work on the customers that you want to. You can move the prices up. You can choose who you want to engage with first. It's a great problem to have. No restaurant ever sees a queue of people out the front and says, oh, we can't service all these people. They service them in time. And guess what? Demand, queues, make people think, I want it more. So be in a position where you have enough leads in your pipeline, and that comes from doing the prospecting and reaching out and doing the work we know, but also not trying to expect leads and deals to come through when when you've planned them to. And if you're too much of a prisoner of hope and you're too much where we've got one or two deals in the pipeline, if they don't come off, you're a bit stuck, you create problems for yourself. So those two combined, the expectation leads in the pipeline. But then the final point that I see, and this is probably a common thread that I see across sales teams in general, is there's just not enough focus on the buyer. There's just not enough focus on the buyer and their issues and their challenges and what's going on in the buyer's world. Sales teams and the people I talk to are still too focused on them and what they do and how great they are and what they're about. And they just don't focus enough on the buyer and what's going on in the buyer's world. And as I said to you, people time and time again, buyers don't give a monkey's ass for you and how good you are and what you do. They care about what difference you can make in their world. And so stop being focused on you and how great you are and how amazing you think your company is. Even if you've got a new service, even if you've got a new feature, even if you're unique in some way, the reality is translate that into what it means for the person that's buying your gear or your service or your offering. Make out what it's going to give them. How's it going to take a problem away in their world or give them something that's going to help them achieve something? And if you can focus on that rather than about what you do and what you're about and how great you are as a company, then you're going to be in a much better place. So look, those are the sales mistakes I see teams making on a regular basis. But look, I welcome your views as well. What are the other things that you're seeing? Maybe you're a sales manager at the moment. What are the mistakes that you're seeing in your team or the frustrations that you're having in your team? Let me know. I'd love to know what your insights are so we can share them. Put them in the comment section of the podcast or reach out to me at social media. I'm James White Sales, pretty much on every social media channel. Or drop me an email at hello@jameswhite.business. I'd love to hear from you and get your thoughts and how we can get you and your sales team to where you want to be. So, but look, that's it from this week's edition of the podcast. I always finish the podcast with an inspirational story. And so I wanted to this week talk about a guy called Jamie McDonald. And Jamie has been known as Adventure Man, and he's basically become a bit of an adventurer because even when times are tough and he's had some really debilitating conditions as a child, he's broke some of the toughest world records. He had a rare spinal condition, and he's still breaking records. He's broken in 2012 he bought a second-hand bike and decided to cycle from Bangkok to Gloucester. And then literally he, after 2 days after finishing the journey, he made the decision to go on the world's static non-stop cycling record, which stood at 224 hours. So he's put himself in a really difficult position because they've done huge amounts of different challenges and in Adventure Man costumes in order to raise money. And I think Jamie McDonald is one of those people that's just, even when times are tough, he's just kept going and kept persisting, and people like that I just think are inspirational. So as I always say, as I finish the podcast off, Jamie McDonald hopefully can be an inspiration for you to achieve whatever you want to, and to make your life and to make a difference in the world, and to achieve everything you want to. So I hope his inspiration gives you the get up and go to make something happen for you and your family and your friends and your loved ones, and to inspire other people, and keep doing what you're doing. If you are doing those things right now, keep doing them, because you may not seem we'll get the results straight away, but in time we do. So that's it from me this week. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast and talking about the sales mistakes that people make, or teams make. I hope it's been helpful for you. If it has, like and tell people about it so we can get other people making the same impact on their business as well. But until next week, see you later. Take care.